Okay, we're at the site called Palpa. This is where the Palpa Geoglyphs are, part of the system of the Nasca system of lines and geoglyphs. And we get to climb all the way to the top of this tower in order to be able to observe them. So here they are over here. They're called the Paracas family. Unfortunately, this camera does not have a zoom, but if you have a big TV screen you're watching it on, you can definitely see what they look like. So in this direction are the famous Nasca lines and geoglyphs.
What'd you say? You?
So what are you talking about? Maybe a llama? You're hurting something.
I can zoom in. I'll zoom in. I'll go inside here.
Can't see anything.
Come up.
So there are approximately 1,600 geoglyphs in this area.
Ryan, what's the one on the left supposed to be? I can't make it out. Is that a bird?
Yeah,
Those are cows.
there's a bird. Then there's a human being right next to it.
What?
There too, right?
What'd you say?
A human being next to it on the right. Then this is the family here.
The grandfather, children, and those were the Paracas. So you
Hi, this is Brian Forster, and we're at the Ica airport, where there's this new display featuring a mummy copy of a Paracas elongated skull. The Ica airport is quite recent, or quite new. I think it's only about 2 years old. And from here, it's a 1.5 hour flight to Nasca and back. On display are many ceramics of the Nasca period. The Nasca came after the elongated skull Paracas people, and this supposedly is how the Nasca lines and geoglyphs were created. So our group in August of 2019, off we go. We're going to get into this 12-seater aircraft. Some of our friends and guests flew just before we did. So this is actually a very stable plane. The ones at Nasca tend to be much smaller, being only 4 seats, and the ride's a little bit, shall we say, exciting as compared to this big 12-seat one, along with a pilot and a co-pilot. So here we are, beginning our journey. If you fly from Nasca, it's only a 30-minute flight, but from Ica, it's an 1.5 hours. And actually, if you fly from Paracas, the new airport there, it's a 2-hour flight. So here we are taking off over the very fertile fields of the city of Ica, which is quite intriguing because Ica and Paracas are part of the Atacama Desert, which is one of the driest deserts in the world. And as you can see, the farmland is starting to decrease, though it's very well kept, and very soon we'll be in, as we are now, in the extreme desert. Look at that interesting circle in the middle of the frame. So we're leaving the Ica farmland behind and going into the extreme desert. In this area, there are quite a few interesting lines. Not sure if these are modern or ancient, but between Ica and Nasca is the area called Palpa, and that's where we find those intriguing rectangles. And Palpa is where there are about 1,000 geoglyphs, quite small, mostly made by the Paracas culture, and also some quite intriguing lines and trapezoid slash so-called runway shapes that you can see. Also, there's occasional flash flooding in this area. Luckily, it hasn't damaged the Nasca lines very much. So here we are in Palpa itself. Again, you see some agriculture, and then you see many lines and different shapes showing up on the ground. Lots of straight lines, some of them go for miles. And now we're approaching the actual Nasca area itself, and it's much more complex than you may have thought. Again, many runways, so-called runways, trapezoid shapes, and soon we're going to see some of the famous figures. So there's a mountain range, or actually a series of mountain ranges in the area, and this is where we're going to see our first famous figure, the astronaut. Look very carefully in the middle of the frame, and there you can see the astronaut. Again, very, very complex. I've flown at least 30 times, and each time I see different things. Now in the middle of the frame is the monkey. And more lines, and trapezoids. Huge rectangles. More trapezoids. The funny thing is, I flew over here with Eric von Daniken, and he actually said, oh, here we have the hummingbird. And Eric von Daniken said, I never said they were runways, I said they looked like runways. That was for an episode of Ancient Aliens. And this is the Pan American Highway. And once again, a very complex system of lines and trapezoidal features. So as you can see, it's more complex than what most people realize. There are lots of different figures on the ground, lots of lines, some bird shapes are showing up. Now we're getting close to the tower that you can climb up and look down at two of the figures. One of them is called the Tree of Life, and the other one is called the Pair of Hands. It's two hands and a head shape. One hand has only 4 fingers. I have, of course, written a book. Oh, actually, there's the parrot shape you can see at the top middle part of the frame. I have written a book about Nasca to try to comprehend what the patterns mean, because it's so complicated. There's no single theory that actually makes sense. You have to combine different theories because the lines and figures were made over the course of 1,000 years by two different cultures. First the Paracas, and then later the Nasca. There's some interesting long rectangular shapes on the way as we head over the Palpa area. And the Palpa area is actually where most of the runways are. And again, there are more than 1,000 geoglyphs there. A very austere environment, 1/2 inch of rain per year. And gradually we're heading back to the city of Ica. Again, those two large rectangular shapes on the way to Ica. Not sure if they're ancient or modern. And now we're moving back into the agriculture. Ica is one of the breadbaskets of Peru. There, and also the highlands of Peru, and also northern Peru. And believe it or not, that was a 1.5 hour journey. And finally touching down in Ica, where there are these massive sand dunes as well, mixed in with agriculture.